Welcome to another edition of Access Higher Ed. I'm Christina Wynn, your host, and we're actually here on the campus of Berkshire Community College. PCTV is taking the show on the road with their series, so we're incredibly excited to be on the campus and in this brand new building, which we're calling the Connector. Today, we're actually going to be talking about BCC's very own new education department, and I'm joined here by its creator and fellow faculty member, Patty Kay and Barbara Kotelnicki. How are you both?
Very well. Thank you for asking us to be here.
Good. Thank you for being
Happy
here.
to be here.
Terrific. Can you talk to us a little bit about your background and how you came to be involved with education?
Sure.
Go ahead.
Start?
Sure.
Go ahead.
I began in the classroom back in '95. I was in the classroom in Baltimore City and stayed there for several years, relocated to Phoenix, Arizona, where I taught in the classroom, and then took a little bit of a break while we started our family and began working in higher education, teaching in the evenings when it was flexible and worked for our family. For the past 11 years, I had been at MCLA, teaching in the education department and supervising student teachers, doing field work. I was involved in some STEM work, and very happy to be able to make the transition to BCC, where I get to work with Patty and all the wonderful things that she's done here, and be able to teach full-time, which is what I've really been missing in the past 11 years. So
that's great, and
happy
welcome.
to be here.
We're
Thank
thrilled
you.
to have
Yes,
you on our
everybody's
team.
been so wonderful.
Absolutely. So I actually took a funny route into early childhood and elementary education. I started out as a high school teacher, worked at a private boarding high school outside of Boston, and then worked at Berkshire School in Sheffield, and then had two little boys who are now grown adults, so this is many, many years ago. And after high school, I actually went to work with 3-year-olds. And some people say, oh my gosh, how did you possibly do that? And actually there are a lot of similarities, like creating that caring community of learners, having people use their words to express how they feel. And then after teaching the 3-year-olds for several years, I taught several grades in elementary school, kindergarten, first grade, third grade, and loved kindergarten, just spent a lot of time there. So it's quickly become my passion. People often say to me, what are your hobbies? And I have to really think. Well, I like the theater, and I like dance, and I like to listen to music, but my hobbies are really my work. And early childhood education is just my thing. So I love what I do, and it's been amazing over the last few years to be here and create something new and different.
Absolutely. So, Patty, you joined us 4 years ago?
Yes, this is my 4th year.
Yeah, we're so thrilled to have you, and joined now by Barbara. And when you came on board, we had a little bit of a different education environment and a very different program then to what we have now. And I imagine that you both have some visions where you see the education program growing. But can you talk a little bit about the difference between what you came into and where we are today?
Absolutely. I had come from a school where I built a brand new early childhood ed program, and it was very suited to the 21st century. Very current, very updated, very aligned with the Department of Early Education and Care standards, and also with the DESE standards in mind, and also the National Association for the Education of Young Children, which is sort of the broad umbrella for early education and care nationally. So when I came here, BCC had 2 separate, very small, sort of independent functioning programs. A small early childhood ed program in one division, and then a small elementary ed program that lived in another division. And as I began to look at the syllabi and the course content and the materials, it was very clear to me at the time that we needed to do a lot of take our lens and look very closely at what we had, what we needed to have, and what would be current for 21st century learners.
Great, great. So when you use the term 21st century learner, in my mind, I think technology, I think about computers, our smartphones and devices, but I would imagine that it likely goes well beyond that. Can you just talk about when you say 20, what does that actually mean? What does that encompass?
Well, one of the things that we talk about a lot is the children who are in front of us now. The preschoolers, early childhood is from birth to age 8. So when we talk about early childhood, we don't necessarily mean just the little ones. It would really be birth to 3rd grade. These children are very different than the children we had in front of us 10 or 15 years ago. And one of the things is they're very savvy with technology. They spend a lot of time on technology. We don't necessarily bring a ton of technology into the classroom because as teachers we're working on things like social skills, how to interact with each other, how to get along, how to function as part of a team, how to wait for a turn, how to be patient, how do you use your language. We're working on all of these things. So we might bring technology in the classroom in a sparing way for early childhood, even though we know it's a fact of life. So the children we have in front of us come with all kinds of other kinds of situations in their life. And by that I mean we're talking about teaching the whole child. We can't teach a child that comes into us and is hungry. We can't teach a child that comes into us and is socially upset. We can't teach a child that comes in and has emotional problems or lives in an environment where there's upheaval all of the time. So we're really teaching our students about all of the domains and all of the areas of child growth and development. And that isn't just the cognitive piece. I mean, back when I was in school, we went to class, we were taught academics, we went home and the families did the rest. It doesn't function like that anymore. And unless children are in the right place to come and learn, the learning isn't going to happen.
Right.
So it's all of the other pieces that we have to make sure are pulled together.
That's an incredible amount of weight and responsibility on teachers, on educators, for the lives of young people. And it struck me that you said, you know, families used to take on so much more of that, and now that is falling in some cases, in many cases, on the educator. And I wonder, how do you determine, how do you teach those kinds of skills to folks who come in and they think, I just want to be a teacher, I just want to teach math, right? How do I do that?
Right. I think part of it is getting our students to know that there's so much more involved than that idea that a lot of people have about what it's like to be a classroom teacher, and that even 20 years ago there was more involved, and that it should be a much more authentic place for children, and that it should be a place where they're collaborating with their peers and they're learning about societal norms and what's expected of them and how they can each contribute and what their strengths and weaknesses are, and looking at it from a different lens. And so when we start in those very first education courses, whether it's childhood growth and development or foundations of education, right away we're talking about that and what they're seeing in the classroom and how they need to be so many different things, managers of everything that they don't always anticipate, but they get that right away. And I think that helps them to see, you know, they go out in the field and they see what it's all about, and it's not just 8 to 3 o'clock. You know, there's so much prep work involved, and you're constantly running. It's exhausting, but it's such a thrilling and rewarding job too, that, you know, we see right away, I think, the students who want to keep going. And this is a great way for them to find out, is this really what I want to do? Am I really suited for this? Maybe there's another aspect of education that I'd be better, or a different age group that I'd be more comfortable working in. So I think them seeing that right away makes a difference. And, you know, every week in our cohort and every week in our classes, we're kind of revisiting and talking about these same issues so that they understand that this is part of the job. It's a human job. It's not, you know, you're not dealing with numbers and data all the time. You're dealing with real people and feelings and families, and how can we get families involved and invested, and to understand that it does take a village to raise these little people, and that we all play a part in that.
Right, absolutely. As you were talking, it struck me that there are some probably very unique kinds of skills that you're looking to grow within a person who is interested in becoming a teacher in early ed, right? So it has to be more than just saying, I really like little kids, right?
Right, and we often hear that. Someone will come in and say, I just love kids. I know I want to be a teacher. And what we do is there's a model, it's teach, model, practice. You teach what you want them to learn. You model that behavior, and then you practice it with the children. We teach the way we want our teachers to teach, and we talk about what are the attributes of teachers. And there are innate attributes that you cannot teach people, such as empathy and patience and passion for what you're doing. But then there are things you can teach. Getting down on the level of the child to speak with them. Don't yell across the room, but walk up to them in person and quietly talk with them so as not to embarrass. All kinds of methodologies that we inform them about, all kinds of theories that we train them in. But ultimately, they have to take that, make it their own, and then put it back out there and use it with the children. And that's the art of teaching. That's the piece of teaching that makes it a unique craft. And it's taking it from theory to practice. And we often see students who do quite well with that and are kind of naturals and walk in and it melds. And then we see students who it's a harder time. Sometimes it isn't what they thought it would be. And they'll say, wow, it was a lot different when I read about it in my book. But when you have 13, 12-month-olds or however old they are, it's a lot different. And it's taking all of that and then putting it out there to be your own to use in the classroom. And you're managing all those children all day long.
It sounds like an incredible amount of responsibility, and I'm so thankful to hear that you both are teaching the next level of teachers, the next generation of teachers, that these kinds of skills are important. If you're just tuning in, we're Access Higher Ed. We're on the campus of Berkshire Community College on the road with PCTV and their great crew. Today we're talking about the new education department here at Berkshire Community College, joined by Patty Kay and Barbara Kotelnicki. So you had mentioned earlier, Barbara, that you had mentioned the word cohort, right? And that's a term that I think here in higher ed, we hear that word quite a bit. But when you talk specifically about the cohort, can you tell me what that means to you and what that actually has meant to the education department here at BCC?
Well, that is Patty's baby, so I'll let her speak to that. But just to chime in a little bit, that cohort is that unique group of students who start a program together and continue on. And so for the next 2.9 years, this wonderful group of dynamic, energetic, they happen to all be women this time, are joining us for the first time this fall as they participate in their first cohort class and getting to know one another and what it's like to be in an academic setting again. Some of them have continued their studies and some of them have been away for a little bit. And so this has been a really unique experience for them, and to know that they're in it together, they're so supportive of one another. The first cohort class that they started is called Current Issues and Trends in Education. So we're delving into those learning theories and the policies and what the state and local and federal government do and their role in education. So they're kind of getting all of this information again that they probably were familiar with years ago and thinking about how it relates to their classroom now. But it's a hybrid course, as all their 7-week modules are, and so they're expected to participate online and be supportive, so they're accessing that 21st century knowledge base that they're just becoming familiar with, some of them, and doing a wonderful job, really, of taking the time to be involved and to listen. And you can see right away, the empathy that's there for one another and the passion for what they do, even though they're working around the clock for these little guys all the time. And just to see them, and even where they were 7 weeks ago when we first met with them, and they were very anxious to start this, and they're very excited for the next phase and the next 7 weeks of their English class and what comes after that. So it's this wonderful idea that Patty was involved with and started, and with the work of Kate Murphy and lots of other people on campus, has really gotten these students to be excited and to want to do this and to continue to be lifelong learners. And I think it's just an amazing opportunity for them, and we can't wait for the next cohort to begin and bring more students on board.
Absolutely.
Just to piggyback on that, you did a wonderful job describing and giving background information. Barb and I are co-teaching, and so when you work with someone that closely, it's either a wonderful marriage or it's one of those marriages that we're fine when we're apart, but we should probably have our own little things that we do. Well, it happens that we have a wonderful marriage in this partnership. And we sort of philosophically come from the same point. We both have our heart and soul in this. This is our passion. This is what we like to do. And we almost complete each other's sentences. So that's a really good thing when you're co-teaching for 4 hours.
Wow.
And you're, trying to keep the group
a lot of
motivated.
togetherness, ladies.
It's a lot of togetherness. But it's been wonderful. One of the things about the cohort before we even started was, as a community college, one of the things that I perceived when I came was that we needed to be more involved in the community. And so I went out a lot. I went out to meet with directors, to meet with principals, to meet with teachers, and had coffee with people and said, hey, what do you think? We have all these people who are teaching in the field. They don't have a degree, but we'd love to help get them a degree. Do you think a cohort program would work? There is a cohort model toward a bachelor's degree program up at MCLA. They were lovely at wanting to share their materials with us. We based it on a lot of what they do and made it our own. But I think it was the community need, the buy-in from the directors who these teachers work for. And I think it's the community spirit of, we as a school want you to be your best self. And if we can create a program that enables that, it's about people's hopes and dreams. And if their hope and dream is to get a degree, to be better at what they do, why wouldn't we want to be the conduit that helps them get there? So I think that's our principle in education. Whether you're 3 or you're 13 or you're 30 or you're 83, you want to aspire to be your best personal self. And education it's about lifelong learning and loving to learn. And if we can emulate that and demonstrate it and put it out there as, this is not only possible, but we can help you, they will come. And that's what's happening so far.
So this cohort is a group of 30 or so?
It's
19.
19, right? We talked about that earlier. So 19 students, and they are a cohort, meaning that they go to class together, they support one another, as you talked about, they become their sort of own kind of mini family support system. So can you talk to us a little bit about what that schedule looks like? Are these people that they're already working, they're already teaching, and how do they fit that into their maybe already busy lives?
I think, as all teachers do, they're able to juggle those balls, and they do it with such grace and ease that it looks seamless and it looks effortless. But they're all teaching all day, and it's not a public school setting, so it's not from 8 to 3 and then they do work at home or they're staying after. They're with children from early morning hours, sometimes before 8, 7 o'clock, until 5 o'clock. And then they're coming to campus once a week from 5 to 9 p.m. to meet with us and doing work outside of class. But they're working all day long, and then they come here and they do more work with us. And we try to make it engaging and hands-on and get them practicing that I do, we do, you do, let's try this and see how it works. And then they go back the next day. And what we've seen a lot from the students too is that they're sharing so much about what we do and how this works with my children. And then we share that in a group in that morning meeting circle that we have in the afternoon every week. And they take things away and they bring things back and they question things and they try things. And I think that's been really great to see too, that they have this place where it's safe and they can vent and they can talk about things and they can problem solve. And it's all for not only their own betterment, but that of their children as well that they work with. And I forget where else I was going with that, sorry.
That's great. So you talked a little bit about the cohort program that's at MCLA, but there are other opportunities for students to not only transfer to MCLA, but other schools as well.
Right, and this has been actually such a pleasure in developing this because we've developed relationships with other colleges. And they'll see our brochure or they'll hear about what we're doing, and we'll meet somebody at a meeting and they'll be excited for what we're doing and they'll say, oh, well, we'd like to come and talk to you about a possible articulation. We really like what you're doing. So we signed an articulation with MCLA over the summer. We're signing one in 2 weeks with the Elms College. We have one in the works with Westfield State College, and we've just begun talks with Springfield College. And the more we can go out and make these connections with other colleges, the richer it makes our program. You know, we can add breadth and depth to it because we watch what other people are doing and we talk with them. And we both just went to a meeting yesterday of people in our positions at other schools. Of course, they consider Western Mass to be Springfield. We have to tell them that we're Western Mass.
There's got another hour and a half to go, folks.
But such an informational meeting yesterday about changes that are continuously made from either the Department of Early Education and Care or DESE, the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education, which we always have to keep our finger on the pulse to stay current. And all of our syllabi align with the standards for the Department of Early Education and Care. They align with NIAC, and the elementary courses align with DESE. So that was another thing when I first came that we hadn't been doing that we really do now, and we stay on top of it. So we're in a good place.
It sounds like it. I mean, all the support systems via the cohort model with the students having the ability to sort of lean on each other and vent and get excited together, the support of the both of you, and then being able to sort of look down the path a little bit and know that I'm going to be able to go to an MCLA, or I'm going to be able to go to a Westfield, or wherever it might be, and know that those classes and those credits are going to continue to transfer, so that I'm not starting from square one, but I'm actually going to come in as a junior and graduate with my bachelor's degree in a number of years. So having all of those support systems in an environment where education is really under a microscope in many ways, right?
Right.
And that as you talked about, the 21st century teaching styles and the learners are obviously quite different.
Right, and I think current practices, we talk about it as developmentally appropriate practices for age and stage, but also it's developmentally appropriate for the children that we have today. So we think about that, we're very cognizant of it. One of the things that we heard yesterday that was very rewarding, two of our students who transferred to the cohort program at Elms, I was speaking with a professor at Elms yesterday, and she was just saying how beautifully they're doing, even though it's only been several weeks, that they're really thriving in that program. And as the people setting the groundwork, sort of building the basement, as it were, we want to know that what we're doing is solid and secure, and that they can move on from there. And to hear that feedback from then the four-year school is, it's rewarding.
So if I'm someone watching at home and I'm thinking to myself, geez, I really like working with children, I'm a good listener, I have empathy, I have some of the skills that we talked about earlier, I think this might want to be a passion that I pursue. What would you recommend them to do next?
You know, it's interesting because I always have students come into my office and they say, I want to work with children. And it really involves this lengthy advising process because there are so many different pathways within the field of education. If it's someone who wants to work in early education and care, that would involve a child care center, possibly opening a home child care center, working in a private or public child care center, a preschool. And that's a separate pathway. If it's somebody that says, oh, I think I want to be a kindergarten teacher in the public school, that's an entirely different pathway. And for people who really don't know, one of the great things we have in our program is stackable credits. So we offer a certificate. It's 16 credits. A person could do 16 credits in one semester. And it's an exposure to several courses and would give you sort of a baseline of this is what this profession is about. With that certificate, you can then go to the Department of Early Education and Care and apply for initial licensure to be an assistant teacher in a child care center or a preschool. So you can do something with that minimal certificate. Next comes the intermediate certificate, and that furthers what you've learned in that first certificate. And with that, you can go on and be lead teacher certified if you have the right amount of hours working with children, and then get that license. And we don't stop there, because if you then find out, oh, you really like school and you really like what you're learning, you have 30 credits now. That's half of an associate degree. You can then come back and stack on the other 30 and obtain an associate degree. We have an associate in science degree that is meant to be a terminal degree, meaning you don't have any inkling of going further. You're happy with that. You want to work in a child care center. You want to stay in that sort of genre of early education and care, and that's the degree you're going to stick with. It's really heavy in education courses. If you think, oh, I may want to go on and get a bachelor's degree, you take the associate in arts degree, which is heavier on general education courses and gives you more of a background to pursue that bachelor's degree and beyond.
And beyond.
And beyond. Right. So there are a lot of choices.
Lots of options.
A lot of options, a lot of abilities that you can start and continue the progression if you so decide. So if folks are thinking, I think this might be something that I want to pursue, or should they be reaching out to you? Is there another, what's the best way to get in touch?
I think reaching out to admissions is fine. Certainly Barb and I love to talk about our field. We don't sit there with the shepherd's hook and pull people in the door.
Right.
But if they walk by and they indicate they're interested in what we're doing, we say, come on in. You know, we'll be happy to talk with you.
Sure.
Sometimes we talk with people who think they're interested in another field. I had a student come by this week, and she's an excellent student in mathematics. And I was kind of sitting there in awe, talking with her as she was talking about her classes, calculus and beyond, and saying, okay, well, this conversation might get a little over my head as far as that is concerned, but she wanted to teach possibly mathematics at the secondary level. We can meet her needs, because we can give her a Foundations of Education course, and we can give her all the other gen eds that she needs to transfer to that four-year school. And you still need the foundational courses in education.
Right.
Because it's not just transmission of material, it's, you have to understand that fine art of teaching and conveying.
Absolutely. Well, thank you both for joining us for our edition of Access Higher Ed. If you want more information on this program, go to berkshirecc.edu. Thanks for tuning in.